In Seoul's glittering underworld, a private club called the Wrong Club conceals more than champagne and whispered deals. It's where the powerful hide their darkest secrets. Amara, a brilliant Ghanaian-Korean data analyst, works quietly in the shadows, her only dream to pay off her late father's debts and escape Korea forever. But one night, curiosity leads her to open an encrypted folder she was never meant to see. Inside, evidence of trafficking, corruption, and crimes that reach the highest levels of power, all belonging to Joon-Ha, the feared Mafia lord who controls the Wrong Club. When he discovers what she's stolen, three men appear at her door. But instead of ending her life, Joon-Ha offers her an impossible choice. What Amara doesn't know is that her father's past and Joon-Ha's tragedy are connected by blood, betrayal, and a secret that could destroy them both or set them free. This is a story about stolen files, dangerous truths, and a woman who learned that sometimes the only way to own your life is to risk losing everything. If you love stories filled with suspense, emotion, and unforgettable twists, subscribe to First Epic Tales by Liam for more captivating tales that will keep you hooked until the very end. Now, back to the story. The flash drive slipped from Amara's trembling fingers and clattered onto the marble floor of her apartment. She stared at it like it was a live grenade, her heart hammering so violently she could hear it in her ears. Outside her window, Seoul glittered with its usual indifferent beauty, neon signs bleeding red and blue into the night sky. But inside, everything had changed. The three missed calls from the Wrong Club weren't unusual. The unlocked door when she came home was. The faint smell of expensive cologne lingering in her hallway was terrifying. Someone had been here. Someone new. She snatched the flash drive from the floor, her fingers slick with cold sweat, and shoved it deep into her jacket pocket. Think, Amara, think. Her mind raced through the last 48 hours, trying to pinpoint exactly when everything went wrong. It was supposed to be simple. Update the encrypted files, maintain the digital records, ask no questions, collect her paycheck. That was the unspoken rule at the Wrong Club, the exclusive private establishment where Seoul's elite came to make deals that would never see daylight. She was good at being invisible, at keeping her head down and her mouth shut. Her Ghanaian father had taught her that before he died. Survive first, questions later. But 2 nights ago, curiosity had betrayed her. She'd been alone in the back office, the club's bass-heavy music thumping through the walls like a distant heartbeat. The system had glitched, displaying a folder that shouldn't have been accessible to someone at her level. Wrong club accounts, it read, with a red lock icon that practically screamed danger. She should have closed it immediately, should have logged out, gone home, forgotten she ever saw it. Instead, her fingers had moved across the keyboard almost of their own accord, her analyst's brain unable to resist the puzzle of breaking through the encryption. It had taken her less than 20 minutes. What she found inside made her stomach turn. Spreadsheets detailing human trafficking routes through Southeast Asia, video files with timestamps and locations, evidence of weapon smuggling operations that spanned 3 continents, names, dates, transactions, all meticulously documented. And woven throughout it all, like a dark thread connecting everything, was one name that appeared again and again: Joon-Ha. The name whispered in the club's shadowy corners, with equal parts reverence and terror. The man who owned the Wrong Club. The man who, according to rumor, could make people disappear with a single phone call. She'd only seen him once, months ago, moving through the VIP section like a panther among sheep. Tall, impeccably dressed in black, his face carved from stone and just as expressive. Even from a distance, his presence had made her skin prickle with instinctive fear. Their eyes had met for half a second, and she'd felt like he could see straight through her, cataloging every secret she'd ever kept. Then looked away, and she'd been able to breathe again. The smart thing would have been to delete everything and pretend she never saw it, But Amara had learned long ago that the world wasn't kind to people like her, people caught between cultures and continents, with nowhere to truly belong. Her father's debts had taught her that. The way he'd died, alone and afraid, had taught her that. So she'd made a copy. Insurance, she told herself. Protection. Just in case. The system had sent a silent alert the moment she'd downloaded the files. She hadn't known that then. She knew it now. Her phone buzzed, making her jump. Unknown number. She stared at it, frozen, as it rang once, twice, 3 times. Then it stopped. A text message appeared immediately after. "We know you're home, Amara. Answer the door." Her blood turned to ice. She hadn't heard a knock, hadn't heard footsteps in the hallway. But when she turned toward her apartment door, she saw the handle slowly beginning to turn. She'd locked it. She was sure she'd locked it. The deadbolt slid back with a soft click that sounded like a gunshot in the silence. The door opened. 3 men entered, moving with the synchronized precision of people who'd done this many times before. They wore dark suits and blank expressions, their faces forgettable in the way that professional criminals' faces always were. The one in front, older than the others with silver threading through his black hair, gave her a smile that never reached his eyes. "Miss Amara," he said, his Korean flawless and polite. "You're needed elsewhere tonight. Please don't make this difficult." "I don't know what you're talking about." Her voice came out stronger than she felt, her father's stubbornness rising in her like muscle memory. "Get out of my home." The man's smile widened, becoming something predatory. "Your home? You work for the wrong club. Nothing you have is truly yours. Not this apartment we pay for, not the clothes you wear, not the air you breathe in this city, and certainly not the information you stole." Her hand moved instinctively to her jacket pocket, feeling the hard edge of the flash drive through the fabric. "I didn't steal anything." "Then you won't mind coming with us to explain that to our employer." It wasn't a question. The 2 men behind him moved forward, flanking her on both sides. "We can do this the easy way, Miss Amara, or we can do it the way that leaves bruises. Your choice." She looked at their faces, at the cold certainty in their eyes, and knew she had no choice at all. This was how it ended. This was how people disappeared in Seoul's underworld, swallowed by the night and never seen again. Her father's voice echoed in her memory. "In this world, baby girl, there are only 2 types of people. Those who know when they're beaten, and corpses." "Fine," she said quietly, lifting her chin. "I'll come." They blindfolded her in the car, thick black fabric that smelled of expensive fabric softener, and other people's fear. The drive felt endless. Amara counted the turns, tried to track the time, searching for any detail that might help her later. If there was a later. The men said nothing, their silence more terrifying than any threat. She could feel the city passing by outside, could hear the muffled sounds of traffic, and life continuing normally while she was being dragged toward something that would either end her or change her completely. When the car finally stopped, rough hands guided her out. Her feet touched smooth stone, and the air smelled different here. Cleaner, richer, like money and power and secrets. They walked her through what felt like a massive space, her footsteps echoing in ways that suggested high ceilings and emptiness. Then upstairs, so many stairs her legs began to ache. Finally, they stopped. She heard a door open, heavy and expensive sounding. Someone pushed her forward into a room. The door closed behind her with a soft click that sounded like a cell locking. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then a voice spoke from somewhere in front of her, low and calm, and absolutely terrifying in its composure. "Remove the blindfold." Hands untied the fabric, light flooded her vision, making her blink rapidly as her eyes adjusted. When they finally focused, her breath caught in her throat. The room was enormous, decorated in minimalist luxury that screamed old money. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Seoul's skyline, the city spread out below like a kingdom. But Amara barely noticed the view. Her entire attention was fixed on the man sitting in a leather chair directly in front of her, watching her with eyes that seemed to catalog every micro-expression on her face. Joon-Ha. He looked different up close. Younger than she'd expected, maybe early 30s, with the kind of face that would have been beautiful if it wasn't so cold. His suit was black and perfectly tailored, his posture relaxed in a way that suggested complete control. But it was his eyes that held her frozen, dark, intelligent, and utterly empty of mercy. "Sit," he said, gesturing to a chair across from him. Amara didn't move. Her pride, stupid and suicidal, kept her feet planted. "I prefer to stand." Something flickered across his face, not quite amusement, but close. "You stole from me, Amara. Do you even know what that means?" "I didn't steal anything." The lie tasted bitter on her tongue, but she forced her voice to stay steady. "I was doing my job, updating files like I do every night." "Don't insult my intelligence." He leaned forward slightly, his gaze never leaving hers. "The system logged every keystroke. I know exactly which files you accessed, how long you spent reading them, and the precise moment you downloaded them onto your flash drive, the flash drive currently in your left jacket pocket." Her hand moved reflexively to her pocket, confirming what he already knew. Stupid. So stupid. "Then you also know I didn't share them with anyone. I didn't try to sell them or leak them. I just..." "Just what?" His voice dropped lower, more dangerous. "Just thought you'd keep a little insurance policy? Some leverage against the dangerous criminals you work for?" He stood up smoothly, moving toward her with the unhurried confidence of a predator that knew its prey had nowhere to run. "Let me explain something about leverage, Amara. It only works if you're willing to use it, and using it would mean exposing yourself as the thief. So tell me, what exactly was your plan?" She had no plan. She'd acted on instinct, on fear, on the desperate need to have something, anything, that might protect her in a world that had never shown her mercy. But she couldn't say that, couldn't show weakness, not to him. "My plan was to survive," she said instead, meeting his gaze even though every instinct screamed at her to look away. "That's always been my plan. Survive long enough to pay off my father's debts and get out of this city, away from people like you." "People like me." He stopped inches from her, close enough that she could smell his cologne, something dark and expensive. "You mean people who built empires while you were still learning to walk? People who understand that in this world, there are only two types of individuals, those who take what they want and those who get taken from." "No," Amara said, her voice shaking with barely controlled anger. "I mean people who profit from suffering, who treat human lives like commodities. I saw those files, Joon-Ha. I know exactly what kind of monster you are." She expected him to hit her, to rage, to have his men drag her away and make her disappear like all the others. Instead, he laughed. It was a harsh sound, bitter and completely devoid of humor. "Monster," he repeated, turning away from her to face the windows. "You have no idea what you're talking about. Those files, the ones you're so righteous about, they're evidence. Documentation of crimes I've spent 5 years collecting. Crimes committed by the very people I'm trying to destroy." Amara's mind reeled. "What? Did you read them completely?" He glanced back at her, and for the first time, she saw something in his eyes that wasn't cold calculation. It looked almost like pain. "Or did you just see the surface and make your judgments?" "I saw enough. Trafficking routes, weapon shipments, murder, all committed by the Han Syndicate, my enemies, the people who killed my family." He moved back to his chair, suddenly looking exhausted. "I inherited the wrong club from my father. He built it as legitimate business, but the Han Syndicate infiltrated it, used it as a front for their operations. By the time I realized what was happening, they'd murdered everyone I loved and threatened to do worse if I didn't cooperate. So I've been documenting everything, building a case, waiting for the right moment to bring them all down. You're lying. But even as she said it, doubt crept into her voice. If that's true, why not go to the police? The police? His laugh was bitter. Half of them are on the Han Syndicate's payroll. The files you stole include evidence of that too, if you'd bothered to look deeper. He fixed her with that intense gaze again. I've been playing a very dangerous game, Amara, pretending to be the monster so I could get close enough to destroy the real ones. And you just downloaded 5 years of carefully gathered evidence onto a flash drive and walked out into the night with it. Amara's legs suddenly felt weak. She sank into the chair she'd refused earlier, her mind racing. That doesn't make sense. Why would you tell me this? Because you've put me in an impossible position. I can't let you go knowing what you know. But I also can't kill someone who stumbled onto information that could save hundreds of lives. He leaned back, studying her. So instead, I'm going to make you a deal. What kind of deal? Amara's voice came out hoarse. You're a data analyst, a good one from what I've seen of your work. I need someone I can trust to help me organize these files, find the patterns, build an airtight case. Someone who isn't already corrupted by this world. His eyes locked onto hers. Work for me. Really work for me, not just updating club records. Help me finish what I started. And when it's done, when the Han Syndicate is destroyed and justice is served, you'll have enough money to pay off every debt your father left you and disappear anywhere in the world you want to go. And if I refuse, then you'll disappear tonight and no one will ever find your body. Not because I want to kill you, Amara, but because I can't risk everything I've built falling apart. There was no threat in his voice, just cold, terrible honesty. I'm giving you a choice that most people in your position never get. Choose wisely. 3 weeks passed like a fever dream. Amara moved through her new reality with the disconnected feeling of someone watching their own life from outside their body. Joon-Ha had been true to his word. She was set up in a secure apartment, given access to encrypted servers, and tasked with analyzing years of accumulated evidence. The work was intricate, demanding, and absolutely horrifying. Every file she opened revealed new depths of depravity. The Han Syndicate wasn't just a criminal organization. It was a hydra with tentacles reaching into every level of Korean society. Politicians, judges, police chiefs, business moguls, all connected, all complicit, all protected by layers of plausible deniability and carefully laundered money. But what disturbed Amara most wasn't the scope of the corruption. It was how much she was beginning to understand Joon-Ha. He came to the apartment most evenings reviewing her progress, discussing strategy. At first, their interactions were purely professional, tense and guarded. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, something shifted. She began to see past the cold mask he wore, catching glimpses of the man underneath. The way his jaw tightened when they uncovered evidence of child trafficking, how his hands clenched into fists when reading testimony from victims, the haunted look in his eyes when he thought she wasn't watching. One night, after they'd spent hours piecing together a particularly damning trail of evidence, he'd poured them both glasses of expensive whiskey and surprised her by asking about her father. You said you were paying off his debts, Joon-Ha said, his voice quieter than usual. What kind of debts? Amara had stared into her glass, watching the amber liquid catch the light. The kind that come from trusting the wrong people. He was a good man, my father. Too good, maybe. He believed everyone deserved a second chance, that people were fundamentally decent underneath. She took a long sip, letting the whiskey burn away the thickness in her throat. Someone he trusted asked him to invest in a business opportunity here in Seoul, promised huge returns, enough to bring our whole family over from Ghana. He emptied his savings, took out loans. The business was a front. The money disappeared. And when he couldn't pay back what he owed, they killed him. Joon-Ha finished softly. No. Amara's laugh was bitter. That would have been kinder. They let him live, drowning in debt, watching everything he'd built crumble. He died of a heart attack 6 months later, alone in a one-room apartment that wasn't even his anymore, surrounded by collection notices and final warnings. She looked up at Joon-Ha, surprised to find understanding in his eyes, rather than pity. I came to Seoul to finish what he started, to pay off everyone he owed so his name could finally be clean. That's why you took the job at the wrong club. It wasn't a question. It paid well. No questions asked about my background, my education, my status. Just work hard, keep quiet, collect your check. She set down her glass. I thought I was being smart, staying invisible. Turns out I was just working for another set of criminals. Not criminals, Joon-Ha corrected quietly. One criminal, pretending to be many. He stood and walked to the window, his silhouette dark against the city lights. My father built the wrong club as a legitimate business. He wanted to prove that someone with our background could succeed in Seoul's elite circles without compromising their integrity. Then the Han Syndicate noticed. They don't like competition, don't like anyone operating in their territory without paying tribute. What happened? Amara found herself asking, drawn into his story despite herself. They made him an offer. Partner with them, or lose everything. His voice was hollow, distant. My father refused, said he'd rather burn it all down than let criminals use his life's work. So they killed him, made it look like suicide. Then they killed my mother for asking too many questions. My younger sister. He stopped, his shoulders tensing. She was 16. They took her as a message. What they did to her before she died. Amara's chest tightened. Joon-Ha, I inherited the wrong club and a choice, he continued, as if she hadn't spoken. Walk away and spend the rest of my life running, or stay and pretend to be what they wanted. A compliant figurehead who'd look the other way while they used my family's legacy for their crimes. He turned to face her, and in his eyes, she saw a pain that mirrored her own. I chose to stay, to smile and bow and play the role of the obedient Mafia lord while I documented every single crime they committed. Every transaction, every victim, every corrupt official in their pocket. I've been building a case that will burn their entire empire to the ground. That's why you can't go to the police, Amara said, understanding finally clicking into place. Because the moment you reveal what you know, I become a target, not just me, but anyone associated with me. Anyone who knows what I know. His gaze held hers. That's why I can't let you go, Amara. Not yet. But also why I'm telling you the truth. You deserve to know what you're part of. Something shifted in the air between them. The fear that had been Amara's constant companion since that first night began to transform into something more complex, something dangerous. You don't scare me anymore, she found herself saying, the words surprising her even as she spoke them. Joon-Ha's expression flickered with something she couldn't quite read. That's your first mistake. But he didn't move away when she stood up, didn't stop her when she crossed the space between them, and when she reached out to touch his face, tracing the hard line of his jaw with gentle fingers. He closed his eyes like a man who'd forgotten what tenderness felt like. We can't, he whispered, but his hand came up to cover hers, holding it against his cheek. This is too dangerous. You're too what? Amara challenged. Too involved already? Too deep in your world to pretend I'm just an employee? She stepped closer, close enough to feel the heat radiating from his body. I've spent my whole life being careful, Joon-Ha, being invisible, playing it safe. And where did it get me? My father still died. I'm still trapped, still alone. You're not alone, he said, his voice rough with emotion he'd been suppressing for what must have been years. Not anymore. When he kissed her, it felt like falling and flying at the same time, like finding something she didn't know she'd been searching for. His hands tangled in her hair, pulling her closer, and for the first time since arriving in Seoul, Amara felt like she belonged somewhere. To someone. It was reckless, stupid, exactly the kind of mistake that got people killed in their world. But in that moment, wrapped in his arms with the city glittering below them, she didn't care. The next morning, everything changed again. Amara woke to find Joon-Ha already dressed, standing by her computer with an expression that made her blood run cold. In his hand was her flash drive, the original one, the one she'd forgotten about, hidden in her old jacket pocket. "Tell me something," he said without looking at her, his voice deadly calm. "When did you plan to mention that you'd been looking through additional files? Files that weren't part of the Han Syndicate evidence?" Her mouth went dry. "What are you talking about?" He finally turned to face her, and the warmth from last night was completely gone. "There are personal records on this drive, Amara. Financial transactions, private correspondence, things that have nothing to do with the syndicate." He took a step toward her. "Things that only someone specifically searching for them would find." "I don't know what you mean. I only downloaded what was in that folder." "Stop lying!" The roar that came from him made her flinch. "I pulled the metadata. You accessed these files 3 months ago, weeks before you supposedly stumbled onto the syndicate evidence." He threw the flash drive onto the bed between them. "Who are you really working for? Who sent you to the wrong club?" "Nobody sent me!" Amara scrambled out of bed, her heart hammering. "I swear, I don't know what files you're talking about. I only looked at what I showed you." "Then explain this." He pulled out his phone, swiping through screens until he found what he wanted. When he turned it toward her, Amara felt the floor drop out from under her. It was a photo, old, faded, printed from a digital scan. 2 men standing outside the wrong club, arms around each other's shoulders, smiling like brothers. One of them was younger, barely recognizable, but definitely Joon-Ha. The other man, older and wearing a suit too big for his frame, made Amara's world tilt, sideways. Her father. "No," she whispered. "That's not possible." "Your father worked for mine," Joon-Ha said, each word sharp as a knife. "He was there when the wrong club first opened. He was there when the Han Syndicate made their move." His voice dropped to something more dangerous than anger, something like betrayal. "And according to the files you accessed 3 months ago, he was there the night my family died." The world narrowed to that single photograph. Amara stared at her father's face, younger and happier than she'd ever seen him, standing next to the man whose son now looked at her with murder in his eyes. Her mind raced, trying to reconcile the father she knew with whatever role he'd played in Joon-Ha's tragedy. "You're wrong," she said, but her voice shook. "My father was a victim. He was scammed, betrayed. He was a traitor." Joon-Ha's words cut through her protest like glass. The Han Syndicate needed inside information to infiltrate the wrong club. "Someone who knew my father's routines, his security measures, his blind spots. Your father gave them everything they needed." He pulled up another image on his phone, a bank statement with her father's name, showing a deposit of 5 million won, dated 2 days before Joon-Ha's family was murdered. He was paid well for his betrayal. Amara's legs gave out. She sank onto the bed, staring at the evidence that destroyed everything she thought she knew. "No, he wouldn't. He couldn't." "Then why did he run?" Joon-Ha demanded. "Why did he flee back to Ghana 3 days after my family died? Why did he change his name, hide his past, never speak about his time in Korea?" "I didn't know." The words tore from her throat, desperate and raw. "I swear on everything, Joon-Ha, I didn't know any of this. My father never told me about Korea, about the wrong club, about any of it. He died keeping these secrets." "Look at the dates," Amara said urgently, grabbing his phone to examine the files more closely. Her analyst's brain kicked in, searching for patterns, for truth buried in data. You said I accessed these files 3 months ago, but I've only been in Seoul for 4 months, and I didn't get my login credentials for the wrong club system until 6 weeks after I started. She pulled up the metadata, her hands shaking. Someone else accessed these files and backdated them to my account. Someone who wanted you to think I was searching for information about my father. Joon-Ha leaned in, studying the screen. She could feel the tension radiating from him, the war between wanting to believe her and needing to protect himself. "Madam, sorry," Amara breathed, the pieces suddenly clicking together. She's the only other person with administrative access. She knew who my father was. She put me in that position deliberately. Her mind raced faster. She's Han Syndicate. Joon-Ha was already moving, pulling out his phone, barking orders. But Amara barely heard him. She was staring at the photograph of her father, seeing him differently now. "He sent me letters," she said suddenly, "before he died. He kept talking about debts he could never repay, about mistakes that followed him across oceans, about something he had to protect, even if it cost him everything." She looked up at Joon-Ha. What if he took information from the Han Syndicate? What if that's why they killed your family? Not because he helped them, but because he betrayed them? That doesn't make sense. If he had evidence against them, why not use it? Because they had leverage. The truth crystallized in Amara's mind with horrible clarity. Me. I was 8 years old when he left Korea. If he'd exposed them, they would have killed me. So he ran, took their money to make it look like he was complicit, and spent the rest of his life making sure they never found what he'd really taken. Joon-Ha sank into a chair. Your father protected you by letting everyone think he was a traitor. And now Madame Sori knows I'm his daughter. She planted evidence to make you think I was a spy, to destroy any alliance between us. Amara stood. So, what do we do? Joon-Ha's expression hardened. We finish what both our fathers started. We find the evidence your father hid. We expose Madame Sori and the entire Han Syndicate. He extended his hand to her. Together. Amara took his hand. They worked desperately for days until Amara cracked it. Her father's letter held the clue. The wrong club holds the right answers. They found a hidden safe in the wrong club, with a USB drive containing everything needed to destroy the Han Syndicate. But when they returned, Madame Sori was waiting with a gun. She revealed she'd been playing both sides all along. A fight erupted. Amara could have killed Sori, but chose justice instead. They uploaded everything that night, flooding journalists and prosecutors with years of evidence. By dawn, Seoul woke to the biggest corruption scandal in its history. The wrong club was raided. In the chaos, 2 people slipped away. Days later, Amara stood at Incheon Airport with a new passport and Joon-Ha beside her, both transformed into people who'd never existed. "Where will you go?" he asked. "Somewhere warm, somewhere I can finally breathe." She looked at him. "You?" "I was thinking somewhere warm sounds nice." His rare smile appeared. "Maybe somewhere with good coffee and fewer people trying to kill us." "We did it, Amara," he said as their flight was called. "We finished what they started." "We did," she agreed. "Now, we get to live." Walking toward the gate, Amara felt the past falling away. She'd come to Seoul trapped by her father's legacy. She was leaving free. Not because someone rescued her, but because she'd learned to rescue herself. She'd found someone who understood that survival meant choosing what kind of life was worth living. She'd stolen the dangerous Mafia lord's files. But in the end, she'd stolen something far more valuable. Her life, her future, her freedom. And in a world that had tried so hard to break her, that was the greatest theft of all. Months later, whispers spread through Seoul's underground about ghost hackers exposing corruption. Some said it was the woman from the wrong club. Others claimed she was just a myth. But Amara, sitting on a beach halfway across the world with Joon-Ha beside her and the sun warm on her face, knew the truth. She wasn't a ghost or a myth. She was just a woman who'd learned that in a world designed to steal everything from you, the most revolutionary act was simply refusing to let it. Was choosing to live fully, love fiercely, and never apologize for the space you took up. She'd walked into the wrong club broken and desperate. She'd walked out whole, and that made all the difference.